Hey, what's up guys? Node Investor here, bringing a quick update on these markets. Just a quick update, mostly just BTC. We'll take a look at a few others very briefly, but just wanted to point out some levels to watch here. Not a lot of change since the big selling that we saw kick off, the stops that were hit, all the triggers that just sold everything off lower. And today the selling continued. We started the day off seeing some more downside pressure, but the bulls managed to bounce it pretty nicely, but unfortunately just couldn't at that last minute close it above and turn this into a big green candle. That would have been nice to see the day close in the green. Was not able to. Nevertheless, this was a big reversal on some pretty decent volume, not as high as the day before, of course, but on some good volume. You could almost say that's a little bit of a doji candle, a hammer reversal candle, but in the near term, you're still not seeing that confirmation. Prices are still very oversold on the daily chart. You see the RSI here near that 20 mark, below it actually. The 10 EMA is still up here near that 6K mark. And so two things have to happen. Either prices have to sit tight for a little bit, let this moving average catch up, let the RSI cool off a little bit, or you have to see a little bit of a bounce, which would have the same effect. It would cool off the RSI and get the prices back to the moving averages, a little bit of that mean reversion effect. But the big picture is broken. Big resistance level has now been formed. Prior support becomes resistance, and with that big break, any bounces are going to likely see some heavy selling going into that resistance zone. And so that's going to be the thing to be watching. If we do start to see some good bounce action, just pay attention as it approaches that psychological 6K mark, and likely before that zone, probably going into that 5,900. Anybody who was caught in that sell-off is going to take this opportunity to sell, and then we'd have to see how it reacts after that. Will it pull back, make a higher low, or is that the end of the move and we just continue lower, hit that 5K mark, $4,900 support level that we're looking at? So those are really the big picture views. The longer it sits below this resistance level, the stronger that's going to become and the more damage that's going to confirm to the chart. If it quickly reverses, then it has to really get back above that $6,200 mark, which is a tall order. That would require a monumental bullish reversal from this point, considering the damage that was done to the charts, and would really require a ton of buying volume for that to be convincing. And so while that's always a possibility, that's certainly the least likely probability scenario at this point. Going to that 4-hour chart here, you can see we're seeing a bounce. Again, this was a pretty decent bounce. It doesn't look like it from the charts, but on a percentage basis, especially considering the relative volatility that we've seen here in the last couple of months, just seeing a bounce of 7-8% here in a few hours is a big move for Bitcoin. But that's, again, considering how stretched it was to the downside. And so what you're seeing here, a couple of things to notice on this bounce. Again, arguing, there's a good argument to be made for, hey, this is a little bit of a double bottom. We're seeing that bounce happen here with some pretty decent volume off the lows. You saw that first wick there, second wick there. I know it's kind of hard to see on my charts here. The bad news is, as the bounce is taking place, you're seeing this volume really dry up as it bounces right into that 10 EMA. Ultimately, the zone to be watching is that space between these two moving averages. If prices continue higher, I would be really surprised if they get back above that. So 5,800 is going to really be that key resistance on a move above this. Near term, that first resistance level is around that $5,600 mark, which it just has struggled to get above today, and especially on that 1-hour chart. But the thing to note here is this volume is drying up as the price has moved higher. It's let the RSI cool off a little bit, still near the lows, sub 30, but it has come off that floor that it was at its single digits near the lows. And so it's let the RSI cool off. You've seen the MACD histograms starting to turn higher, but I am cautious for another potential leg down as it approaches that moving average here. Interestingly enough, though, if we saw that second wave or that next wave down from this level, notice this is the resistance that it's been unable to clear. But if we saw a pullback and formed a higher low, that would go to form a little bit of an inverse head and shoulder on that 1-hour chart, which would be a bullish reversal. But again, not expecting a full retracement. If you do a measured move on that from the breakout point, look at where it takes you right back into that resistance, and probably would fail before that zone. But you could see another move into that level. So just something to keep an eye on here. Those are the levels I'm watching in the very near term. So just that near term resistance on that 1-hour chart, And if it does happen to get above that, then this is really the level that I'm going to be watching, is that little zone right here above the 10 EMA, 5650 up to around 5800. And this is on the Coinbase exchange. Prices do vary on Binance because of some of that tether disparity that has been showing up in these charts as of late. So that's really the big picture right now. The momentum is still very much in favor of the bears, and it's very clear to see that here when you see these moving averages just sloping lower, and we're seeing a bounce, but has not even been able to get above these moving averages. Just kind of shows you that the downward pressure is still very much in place, especially with the lack of volume showing up on the way up. Now the shorts have increased significantly, so you could see some buying pressure from some short covering. You're seeing a little bit of that today, but you know, that's only helped to relieve some of the shorts a little bit, and you can see them start climbing up. On the Ethereum side, shorts haven't really covered a whole lot, and that was a pretty big spike in the shorts yesterday. A few other names that were moving relatively well today, comparatively speaking. I mean, most of the names are just bouncing right into these resistance zones. Here's Ripple, for example. But on the Ripple BTC pair, again, has held up very well versus BTC, considering the carnages that we saw here over the last couple of days. And you can see prices are now above where they were before all of this selling happened. And again, this is on the BTC pair. We saw that breakout last week. Prices kind of sat tight, and then they had that big rollover here a couple days ago and just has really bounced back strongly. Now on the dollar pair, of course, they're bouncing right into resistance, and that's because of Bitcoin just bouncing into that. But versus BTC, Ripple has really outperformed here in the last day, from the exact low to today's high, up almost 20% on the move. So pretty impressive to see that bounce back. Lumen's another one that has been bouncing back, again, also bouncing right into resistance on the dollar pair. But if we look at it from the Lumen's BTC pair, you can see this one has had a nice bounce back as well versus Bitcoin, from the lows yesterday to today's highs, about 15%. So nice little move there. So there's been a handful of names that have kind of bucked the trend. I wouldn't exactly call it a bullish move. They're just bouncing a little bit stronger. Versus BTC have held their own. Link is one of those that has held up relatively well versus Bitcoin. Mana putting in a little bit of a higher low right now, or a lower high, excuse me, but did also have a nice little bit of a recovery. And again, this is versus Bitcoin. On the dollar pairs, all of these are going to be lower sharply because of the big drop that Bitcoin has seen over the last couple of days. So going back to Bitcoin right now, odds favor some more downside action just because we're bouncing into this 10 EMA. But if we happen to get above it, then you guys know the levels that I'm going to be watching here in the near term. Looking at it from the Binance exchange here, I was talking Coinbase values earlier. So near term on Binance, getting above 5,800 would kind of be that hourly resistance to look for. That would be cleared. And then on the 4-hour chart, bouncing into basically 5,900, 6K on the 4-hour chart. But for now, got to remain defensive, got to take that defensive posture, either stay on the sidelines, or for those of you that are shorting, you know, this might be a little bit of shortable bounce. But on the flip side, you got to look at the daily chart, still stretched to the downside. Could it go lower? Absolutely, but just needs to recover, needs to cool off a little bit. And so just a lot of uncertainty. We're certainly in this no man's land, if you will. I've been talking about that here for a little bit in the last couple of days with my group, just because, you know, we've clearly have broken a significant support zone, but the next major resistance zone is down around that 5K mark. And so prices are just right in the middle right now. They've bounced back. And so from here, it's really could go either way. And those are the levels I'm watching here in the near term. So just wanted to bring that quick update, guys. I'll do a more in-depth analysis tomorrow. There just hasn't been a whole lot of action today. We saw the Bitcoin Cash fork and some of the pretty volatile price action that happened on that. But other than that, looking at Bitcoin, we did start the day off with some big selling. It was good to see that recovery, but we haven't really seen a whole lot of follow through since that bounce. So we'll have to see where the prices go tomorrow. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone.